Afternoon, everybody. You're all very welcome. Declan Fitzmaurice is my name, and I chair the technical committee for the Institute of Refrigeration in Ireland. And thank you all for joining. So this is the 8th and last webinar in the series that we're running over the summer on the public inquiry stage of the revision to EN378. It has fallen very nicely because our last speaker is from the NSAI, who will be fielding all the comments that hopefully that you will have, that you'll be able to submit. So as always, thank you to the Institute's corporate partners. So it's largely due to them that we're able to hold events like this, and there's no charge. It's generally free. And thank you to all our previous speakers. The most recent one was Fabrizio Spina from HPI on the CE marking and pressure equipment directive. So that was very good. And this talk then today is by Jonathan Quigley, who's from Standards Development in NSAI. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Jonathan. So the talk will run for, as always, about just under 30 minutes. So we should be finished by 1:45 in half an hour. So over to you, Jonathan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Declan. I'll just pull up my presentation and we can get going. Should be this one. Yeah, everybody see that presentation?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Yeah.
Okie doke. Right. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Declan. My name is Jonathan Quigley. I'm a Standards Development Manager here for the National Standards Authority of Ireland. So, like Declan said, so far this summer, you've been through a series of webinars in relation to EN378. So I'm hoping at this point most know it's being revised, or at least 4 of the parts are. And as we sit here now, they're open for public consultation, public inquiry, public comment, however you want to describe it. So hopefully I'll be able to give you an idea of how you can engage with that process in more than one way. And also just to give you a brief overview of how the standards are developed and what NSAI's role is in that as well. So first of all, briefly about NSAI and who we are. So we're Ireland's national standards body. We're established under the NSAI Act of 1996. We're accountable to the Department of Enterprise, Tourism and Employment. And we have 4 divisions at the moment. We have the Standards Division where I work. We have certification, which should be the likes of our business excellence, who some of your organizations might use to certify against the likes of ISO 9001, for example. We've our legal metrology, and we've also got our national metrology lab as well. So what is a standard in the context of what we're talking about today? So as far as we're concerned, we use the definition that's in the EU regulation on standardization, which states that a standard means a technical specification adopted by a recognized standardization body for repeated or continuous application with which compliance is not compulsory. So they're voluntary guidelines that provide specifications for goods, services, processes, things like that. And they exist really to facilitate trade in markets where compatibility and interoperability are essential, like the EU single market, for example. So what is a standard? Well, it's a document with agreed rules, guidelines, or definitions on how to make a product, manage a process, deliver a service, or supply materials. And like I said, for the vast majority, it's they're voluntary in their application. So what's the benefit of them? Well, they can be used to help business comply with legal obligations. They can help to define and promote state-of-the-art best practices, increase safety of products, processes, services. They can help protect consumer health, protect the environment, sustainability, promote interoperability of products and service, and capture, promote, and spread new technology, new ideas, emerging technology, things like that. So that's why we have them. But who publishes them? Where are these coming from? Well, outside of NSAI and your national standards bodies, you've got a number of large standards bodies, shall we say. So in Europe, the main ones are CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI. These are the ones who publish the EN standards. So any standard you see that has EN in the title, say, is a European standard published by one of these three bodies. They have distinct scopes, I suppose, in terms of the sectors they cover. CENELEC, if I take that first, covers all your electrical, electrotechnical, electronic types or standards. ETSI would be communication standards, and then CEN would pretty much do everything else. So all your services, healthcare, food, quality management, things like that will all come from CEN. So all our EN standards, case in point, EN378 comes from a CEN technical committee. On the international side, then you have ISO, IEC, and the ITU, and they have similar scopes then to CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI, respectively. Between the international side and the European side, there's quite a bit of collaboration. So you'll often see through agreements between the two sets of bodies, they'll collaborate on drafting a standard. So you will get an EN ISO, say. So it's an international standard first, and then it's adopted by the European side. So there's a common standard globally, not just in Europe or outside of Europe, say. So that's how they work. But how who's involved? So in terms of both the Europeans and the international side, the members of these standards organizations are the national members. And what I mean by that is Ireland, the United Kingdom, France, the USA, etc., depending on where you are. So for Ireland, NSAI is the member. So CEN and CENELEC in Europe have 33 individual members. So that's the EU 27. The UK is still a member. And then other non-EU European countries as well are members, like Switzerland and Norway, for example. ISO/IEC have somewhere in the region of 170 members. So, China, Japan, Australia, USA, Canada, etc., are all members of ISO/IEC as well. So it's truly a kind of an international approach to standardization. So who actually sits down with a pen and paper, or digitally as it is now, and writes a standard? Well, it's a community of experts nominated by their national standards body, and they come together in a committee setting to write the standards. The process is underpinned by transparency consensus. So the process includes significant public consultation, allowing for anyone, anywhere really, to have an input to the standard. And this applies to standards written here nationally in Ireland by NSAI, or in Europe, or at the international level. So what's the process like? Well, they're formed through a consensus-based process, written in a committee setting, like I said, and they take into account as many voices as possible. They're put together in an open, transparent way, following set rules, procedures, with a key element being the consultation or inquiry period, where we are now for 378, where opportunities given to the wider public to comment, not just the experts who are directly involved. So generally speaking, the process of developing a standard is the same, whether it's here in Ireland, in Europe, or internationally. There's some sort of proposal for a standard, be it, here in Ireland, we get proposals, say, from government or trade bodies, etc. In Europe, it could come from the EU, etc., like that. So there's a proposal that's evaluated, and they decide whether or not they're going to pursue this as a standard. If a committee exists or a committee needs to be formed, it will be done. And there's a drafting exercise where, like I said, built on consensus. Once the committee is satisfied with the draft, it gets issued then for the public inquiry. Once the public inquiry closes, any comments received are considered by the technical body who's drafting the standard. And if they feel, or if they deem it necessary, they'll update the draft. It's then approved and published, and that's how we have standards. And then every 5 years, typically, a published standard is then reviewed, at which point the technical body, with the input of the national standards bodies around the world, if it's an international, around Europe, if it's European, can essentially say whether or not it's still applicable, still valid. So it may be deemed that it needs to be revised or withdrawn, or just continue on for 5 more years till the next review period comes up. So what's NSAI's role in this? So we kind of have 2 roles really to play. First, at the national level, just here locally in Ireland, we publish Indigenous Irish standards, and we follow that same process I just outlined. So we have our own committees of national experts that will come together, draft a national standard when there's a need. An example is, under a previous climate action plan from the government, there was a call for standards in relation to solar PV installations and heat pump installations. So there we have two national standard recommendations, as they're called, for those pieces of technology. We also have standards for the likes of fire alarms people might be aware of, or the wiring rules, IS 10101, people might be aware of. We also adopt European standards. So a contingent, it's a rule of our membership of the European standards organization is we have to adopt all ENs as a national standard. So any EN standard that gets published is automatically an ISEN, so it's an Irish standard. This applies for all members of SEN and SENLEC. So anytime you see a BSEN, that means it's an equivalent ISEN. That means it's equivalent German version, a DNEN, or a French version. And that's how it goes. That's how European standards are, I suppose, distributed around the members. The other thing we need to do is, if there's a equivalent national standard, which then has, causes a conflict, we then withdraw our equivalent national standard. So then we only have the European standard as the national standard. And the idea is it reduces barriers to trade, technical barriers to trade for people in Ireland to be able to put products in the market, say, around Europe. We can also adopt international standards, but we're not obliged to do so. But we can, say, have an ISISO. Our second role then is to provide a gateway for Irish industry to access and influence European and international standards work. So we facilitate engagement and support in standardization for government, industry, consumer bodies, standards users, academics. And the importance of engagement and support becomes particularly evident at policy making stage for new technologies. But I suppose, what does this mean for like yourselves? So during the development stage of standards, the documents undergo the public commenting phase, like we have now on EN378. But in addition to these, there's also voting that takes place. That's, I suppose, not privy to the public, but privy to NSAI and our experts who are on our committees. And these take place during the development life cycle of a standard, from proposal stage, inquiry, then there's a final vote before publication, and even when it comes to the review period, there's an accompanying vote and a request for comments. So we're asked to provide, on behalf of Ireland, the Irish opinion, or Irish view, or Irish vote on these standards. And to facilitate this, we have our network of experts on our own national committees, and these committees mirror the work programs of the European committees and provide, I suppose, a place for Irish experts and Irish stakeholders to be able to be following the work closely, more closer even than you could if you were just a member of the public using the public-facing commenting tool. We provide the platforms for experts to be able to go on, see the work, the outputs of these committees in Europe and internationally, the meeting minutes, working drafts of standards, things like this. So you can really be, looking years ahead into the future as standards are being drafted from day dot, say. So what does this give? Overall is a global community of experts, not just Irish experts on our national committees. There's the equivalent across the world, really, in all the different countries who are engaging in the standardization process. As many experts there are engaged directly at writing the standard in Europe, there's generally many more in their home country who are also interested in are feeding information to their colleagues, say, in the committees in Europe, and they also have the opportunity to comment and influence votes, etc., within their own national standards bodies. So in Ireland, for example, national standards committees work in standards across all sectors, really. ICT, so AI and cybersecurity are obviously big there now. Construction is a huge area for NSAI's focus. Electrical infrastructure, gas, and developments around gas, such as hydrogen as an emerging replacement for natural gas, say, healthcare, food, and everything, really, sports, everything. So through our committees, our experts have the opportunity to comment and vote on standards, but also participate directly on these European international committees. And membership is free, I should say, as well. We don't charge any membership fees or anything in NSAI. But you get huge benefit for your engagement in that you get to access draft standards before they're even going for public comment. You can get to be involved in the drafting of them as well. So if you feel like you have more to say, then you get the opportunity to do so in terms of just this brief window of public commenting. You want to be involved in drafting the standard, we can facilitate that. So yeah, what does it mean? Being a registered technical expert with NSAI affords you the opportunity to get involved in standards development at the national, European, or international level, as I've outlined. And what are the benefits? Well, the standards in general make your lives easier. They're part of your industry. You can see standards as develop. You can be part of the standards as develop. If you're a manufacturer, for example, they can remove barriers to trade, allow economies of scale to be exploited. They can aid innovation and competitiveness, and they can help with legal certainty around certain things. They can provide common technical rules and guidelines for the manufacture of products and provision of services. And when they are properly developed and applied, they're a huge help generally to people in the market. So what we found is whether it's national or international participation, Irish experts have the same opportunity as members from other countries. We first of all, it's often said for a small population and a small population of experts who really, we get more out of it than we should, consider the amount of experts we have. So you can really, you can be ahead of the curve. You can get your IP into standards. At the other end of the scale, as you can see there, you have the adopters who, the people who are wait for it. Once the standard gets published, then that they react to a new edition and we need to change our process. Whereas if you're an early adopter or a leader, even in this, you can be at the forefront, be aware of changes that might be coming down the line that might affect your manufacturing processes, and go to market on once the standard is published with a product that's fully compliant with the new version of the standard, whereas your competitors might be months if not years behind. So the most actively involved really have the greatest ability to leverage their involvement and to get their proposals into standards. So I suppose before we get into the how to comment, just to mention, I've said there's a lot of technical bodies, committees in NSAI related to refrigeration and relevant for the IRI members. There's just a small sample on the screen there now of European and international committees related to refrigeration. And in NSAI we have our own committees which allow experts to follow the work of these committees shown. So outside of the people on our committees, people who are in the general public who want to review and comment on draft standards, well, we have this facility. It's called Your Standards, Your Say. It's only intended for Irish residents and those who commit to giving constructive and professional feedback on the drafts. But once you register, you can go on, and when the draft window is open for the standards, you can comment and review any draft from NSAI, from SEN, SENELEC, ISO, IC, and ETSI through our website. So I'm going to give a live demo. Just stop sharing for a moment. Then or maybe I'm still sharing. Where's the Windows? Bear with me 1 second. Now, so this is the website. So it's NSAI NEP.ie. Sorry, 1 second, just make sure I'm still there. Yeah, NSAI NEP.ie is the web address, or you could Google Your Standards, Your Say to get to it either if you want, or head to the NSAI website, nsai.ie, and there's a link there as well. But it's a dedicated website on its own, NSAI NEP.ie, and this is what it looks like. Very simple to use. The first thing you'll do if you're not already registered is register. Up here, fill in your details, click register. Once that's done, you'll get a confirmation you log in very simply. That's me. Log in. You should go back to the main. So I get this page because I'm staff, but you should just get back to here. You're logged in, and now you can review any standard that's currently open for public comment. It's great to see that down here, most popular drafts is part 1 and part 2 of 378. So it means people are looking at these in Ireland. You can browse by subject if you want, or the quickest way, if you know the standard number, or even a keyword in the title, you can search by keyword. But we're just going to go 378, hit search, and it's going to pop up now in a second the 4 parts that are open for public comment. So there's part 1, 2, 3, and 5 are all open for public comment at the moment. So what do? We go into any of them here. I'll go into part 1 for sake of it. So where's the button there? Sorry, screens on top of screens here. It gives you, the first screen just gives you some of the information, title, and the opening and closing date. So pertinent for these guys, just to flag for the 4 parts that are open for comment, they're only open for 1 more week. 28th of August, these close on. So how do you read the draft? How do you comment on it? Well, read draft brings us to the next page. So where is the draft? It's here. Download document. Okay, we'll click on this, and this will download the PDF straight to your computer. So here's our PDF of the draft. All 72 pages are here. Okay. What's good with in this case, or for future reference, when there's revisions happening, generally the forward will include a list of changes. So if you have the existing part 1 to hand and you have the new version and you're wondering, well, what's different? Well, here's a, it's not exhaustive. It's not every single change, but it's, I suppose the most significant technical changes are generally listed in the forward if you're ever just want a high level overview of what's changing without delving into the whole thing. But yeah, you'll be able to download the PDF of the draft for all 4 parts, 1, 2, 3, and 5. Then how do you put your comments in? Well, it's very simple. Scroll back to this page here, scroll down slightly, and there's 3 boxes for you to fill in. Okay, so first is make a comment box, clause or subclause. So you put in the clause number. So we'll scroll down here and we'll pick a random clause. 6.2. So we want to make a comment about 6.2 connected space calculations. So very simply, we type in the clause number 6.2. Then what's our comment? What do we want to say? Very simple. Connected space calculations should be disconnected space calculations. So we type that in to here what our comment is. And then this is very important, proposed change. So if you are commenting, if you're making a comment, it's always well worth trying to support it with a proposed change, be that some text to back it up. Like it says this, but I think it should say this. Because if you consider you're a member of the public, what happens after this gets submitted is that a group of experts that you're not familiar with will read your comment in a couple of months, and without you being there to rationalize it, you want to give as little opportunity for them to misunderstand your comment as possible. So for that reason, I'd always encourage a proposed change to be included as well, to ensure that the comment you're making is clear to the person who's going to read it. So like I said, clause number, so they know where to go to see what your comment means, what the comment is, and what your proposed change. Then you have these 3 check boxes here for comment type. So there are 3 types of comment. There's general, there's editorial, and there's technical. The editorial one is, look, it's what it says on the tin. It's an editorial issue. It's a spelling mistake, grammatical, punctuation, that kind of thing. It's an editorial. Always worth pointing out this kind of thing. As minor as it might seem, by all means, send them in. General are it's more general. It's overarching type comments on maybe a whole section or the document. But something a bit more wide, overarching across the entire document. And then technical is where you'd make succinct, granular comments about certain technical aspects. The standard says the the maximum allowable pressure is, 100 bar, but it should be 200 bar. That's that kind of level of technicality, really getting into the nitty-gritty of the standard. So if you complete those, then the next one then is comment on behalf of. So you'll have your organization that you're registered under. Here, I have NSAI, obviously, because I'm an NSAI member or a staff member. But you'll have comment on behalf of NSAI or whoever and other. So the reason you have an opportunity to say other is because if, for example, I work for NSAI, but say I'm also a member of a trade association, say I'm a member of the IRI and I want to comment on their behalf, but I'm already registered through NSAI, I can actually stipulate, well, I'm commenting on behalf of somebody else and type it in. So once you put your comment in, you can save it and come back to it later. And when you do that, when you log in, you have an option up here for my comments that you can go back into, or you can submit the comment. Okay, so once you submit your comment, what happens is once the window closes on the 28th next week, all comments submitted will be collated and they'll be reviewed by NSAI, generally with the input, if there's a substantial amount of our technical committee, and then they'll be submitted as Ireland's comments. So if Joe Blogs isn't commenting directly on the standard, it's coming from Ireland. So your comments are the Irish comments, and it's similar across all the standards bodies. So no one individual in the UK or France, say, is commenting on the standard. The comments all come in from the national standards bodies. But the idea is that we're giving the Irish position on these standards. So the opportunity for Irish experts to have their say on this standard and how it affects our local market, say. But it's very simple, really. Just you download the draft, fill in the clause or subclause and your comment, and hit submit or save. I'm going to come back to it later. You can go, like I said, up here, my comments. If you have unsubmitted comments, they'll be in here. The important thing is just to hit submit. Look, that's really very quickly how you put your comments in. I'll stop sharing that. And I think where is this here? The presentation is finished now, I think. That was the last slide. Oh, just one more thing, yeah. So, like I said, we're always looking for experts to join our national committees. So if you're interested, you can head over to nsai.ie and register your interest there. There's no obligation to join a committee if you do register, but I'll follow with you or one of my colleagues, and we can have a discussion if there is areas you want to get involved in. Like I said, it's open to anyone in Ireland. I know the IRI is an all-island association. So if you're based in Northern Ireland or if you're based in Great Britain, BSI would be your national standards body. From NSAI, we don't charge any fees to get involved. And like I said, you can keep up to date with your standards. You get to network with your peers from other businesses around Ireland. Some bodies offer CPD as well for getting involved, which is very useful, I think. If you want to get more information, nsai.ie/standards or sensenelec.eu if you want to see the European standards, iec.ch or iso.org for the international stuff. Any questions, standards@nsai.ie is our generic email address. If you want to buy some standards, standards.ie is our web store. And if you want to contact me directly, jonathan.quigley@nsai.ie. Happy to hear from anybody. If anybody has any questions, happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll hand back over to Declan.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. If there are any questions, you can just put them in the Q&A. One question that came through to me, Jonathan, was it was actually from a couple of contractors who are saying that they find the standard a little complicated for smaller contractor organizations, or where a contractor might be just 3 or 4 employees. So is there any facility for them to say, could this be made any simpler, please, or is it just to comment on what's been drafted?
Well, look, the comments, yeah. So I suppose the general comment general, technical, editorial. Technical would be, like I said, your technical details, but general would be where that kind of comment goes in. Like ultimately, there's no issue with submitting that kind of comment, but at the end of the day, it's up to the members of the SEN committee and SEN working group who are writing these standards to take those comments on board, and if changes are to be made, to make those changes. That's ultimately how the process works.
Okay. Okay, and in terms of time, everybody has 1 week to get their comments uploaded, is it? By
Yes.
the 28th? Yeah.
So the 28th of what month are we now? August. 28th of August. Yeah. These 4 close for comment for the public.
Okay. Okay, well that's 13:45. I don't see any other questions coming in, Jonathan. So I'm happy to close the event. So to thank you to Jonathan and to all our 8 presenters. So it's been a busy series over the summer. Thank you all. I think 1 or 2 people might have got to attend every webinar. So we might send out them a little CPD certificate. I think maybe John Carey and maybe 1 or 2 others. So thank you all. I know it's been taking up your summer lunch times. Please participate. The Institute is really keen that we get our comments submitted to SEN, because this is probably our only chance as an industry to shape the standard for the next 5, maybe 10 years. So we'd encourage you to do that, and we'll keep you posted then on future events in the Institute. We have your email address. If there's anything in the meantime, please get back to us. And if anybody misses the deadline, I'm on the working group, so the experts have an extra few weeks before we submit our comments. So if anybody does want to pursue a particular point or want to raise something, please do get in touch with the Institute or get in touch with me. So other than that, thank you again, Jonathan. Delighted to have the NSAI. You've always been very supportive of the Institute, so I thank you for that. And thank you all, and I'll close the event. Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.